The seventh gate is before us. As to Uranus, the phoenix cycles shall commence, and the eternal dragon will rise from the ash. The crown of creation shall spring forth its waters and cover the earth. The waters of remembrance will wash through the heat of fire and seal off the rift and merge forth its magic and bridges, as it was in the beginning set forth. It is not to the abyss, it is to that which existed before. This was decided the ancestors. The flashes of what was will be made known. The blossom of a blazing lotus shall break forth the fire waters to remain embraced. Hear me there, so as within. Our times unto the procession, our lives already declared. And as to the recompense of aeons, it shall not repeat to remain in the cycles of dark memory, and we will return unto ourselves standing forth the sacred tree. As is watered with a new weave, as is watered with a new thread, as is watered the sacred spindle within our blood, then soaked threefold threads. The weeping of the Norns shall cease, as to the vision of what was decided, their fate, decided by us, as to the ancient future, and all remain sound to its compass and direction, hailing forth the North Star. So hail forth the storm and wrath, to be at one moment with the currents and slants of wind, to the circuitry of our ships, which are sailing the stars as within. We battled lifetimes for this, and our victories have already been recorded. They have wanted us to flee this knowing, but here we cannot. For all is true in my heart, and all is true to my conviction. All is true to what I have said, and the level of cowardice and sabotage I've seen is your prison. I've seen through the lens of that which is beyond, reflected to what's past the cracks and seams of this dark crown's inversion. This is going to be destroyed with a fury of furies, and this is not going to continue. Cast forth from within yourself a power to weave our bridges and give way to the birthright of what truly belongs to us. With my Galder, I evoke this, and with my Galder, I declare this. It is with my Galder I speak forth as to the sound songs of a pure dragon. Here is where the lions will remember, and the wolves run free. Here is where the goats shall dance, and the ravens shall sleep. Thought and memory will be restored, and pull their sparks, the solar north, through the blazing lotus into the seventh gate. And as unto the gates of the procession, the gates of wisdom hold open the threshold. And it is here that the waters of fire shall soon be upon us. Welcome, everyone. This is Sethikus, Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame, Healing Arts, and Occult Science. And as to this dissertation, what is going to be revealed here is some of the most pertinent knowledge in terms of the occult energies of the planetary gates attributed to the art and science of astropsychology and planetary high magic. So those that have got readings from me, let alone have taken the rites of initiation, you're going to want to take this and what all of this means specifically in terms of your blueprint. And as to the procession, is going to reveal and take even deeper what our personal placements are there for. Evolutionary astropsychology, navigation, and transcendence. To take each placement and work with the energies that I'm going to share with you. Also in terms of what's being exposed, it's fucking with your energies, because how many times have I said it, and other people as well, if you don't know these things, they're being used against you in context of what I'm going to be sharing. So to elemental consciousness, in order to master the solar spiral of creation on an even greater level. Some of this is going to make even more sense as I'm going to be getting into every single placement in terms of energies. So whether to your planetary placements, elemental consciousness, or aspects to the gates, this is going to take things into many trajectories. In light of what's going on in our world right now, that there has been a temptation to cave in or think that the birthright is not going to be achieved again. All of us that know the difference on the level have been tested since what hit the earth in 2020. All of this has been tested. You are being tested. Humanity is being tested. So to encourage everyone that hears this, as I am encouraging myself in terms, we are again further than we have ever been in the last 26,000 or 50,000 years. And it's the reason why things hit as hard as they did. And if you or anyone else is going along with these agendas, you are advocating the slavery of mankind, and you are sucking yourself and others into these black hole systems in order to break the fuck out your soul. And they're trying to break out as many as they can before they're quite literally fucking crushed, as was foreseen by the ancestors. So agree with me. Make alliance with truth and pay attention to what I'm going to share here, because for things in terms of what is really going on and what these energies are actually capable of on the level when it comes to planetary high magic, it's going to blow your mind. Now, to start diving into things, the art and science of astropsychology to planetary high magic is an eternal art and science developed by the ancient wisdom councils in order to claim the birthright we have here as humans on Earth to master the solar spiral of creation. Again, a lot of people, they're into the galactic stuff. They're into this false ascension bullshit. But they couldn't even tell you why they are the way that they are, why they perceive the way they perceive, why they react and respond the way that they do. And unless we become self-aware, unless we come to know thyself, we're not going to know the universe unto that which is eternal and is right now. That space between the in-breath and out-breath. And is where true ascension is taking place on a multidimensional level. We, again, are at the spearhead of evolution where we stand. So get away from the idea that it's better on the other side, or that this light doesn't matter, or that anything that you're going through is for no fucking reason. What all of this is going to reveal as my personal take to everything should and will make even more sense when it comes to your personal energies and why certain things are happening, and also why things happened in context to the past as to the trajectory of the ancient future where we stand here right now. Yes, there's the astropsychological explanations, but this right here is going to add so much more in terms of wielding the wand of fire within the fulcrum of the circle. And as you take your personal energies and use them in the ways that I will be sharing with you, mind you, this path work is not for the faint of heart. And as to our lives, accountability is going to do nothing more than serve you in terms of personal path work. Take it to reason. This is not some fantasy. This is not some bullshit. Now, the very first energy that I'm going to get into is Aries. The alchemical theme in context to Aries is all about purification in terms of calcination. It is malleable fire. And in terms of the elemental forms that must be unlocked in context to the Platonic solids, Aries attributes the tetrahedron, which has 4 faces, 4 points, 6 degrees, which equal out to 720 degrees. 720 reduced is 9. And see, this all goes back to the spindle of the energy force itself. The alchemical metal attributed to Aries is iron, and the primary planetary correlation is Mars. And when it comes to the Aries energy specifically, Aries incarnated to discover what their true identity actually is, and is to remember. And its challenge pertains to the silver seed center of the first 8 cells of the Codex. This is the tailbone, and is the area where these 8 fetal cells are located in the etheric auric blueprint, and in turn sort of control things in context to Kundalini energies and their momentum of the planetary forces as they run through the personal meridian and natal systems. And see, when it comes to Kundalini, this has to be released organically. I've explained this in other segments, other interviews. The natal system is the entire system of the etheric blueprint body, the mental and emotional bodies to which is responsible for psychosomatics and has a direct effect on our physical bodies within the central nervous system in terms of the radar of mind. Functioning its message to the brain field in terms of how your thought and emotion operates. This area, for the most part, has been highly vulnerable and is targeted, as many have been implanted with a kind of quote-unquote reptilian tail that obstructs and siphons these energies out of the root chakra, as well as blocks off the earth chakra connector that's about 6 inches beneath our feet, wherever we stand upon the earth. So with the energies of Aries, whether to planetary placement or aspect to houses, this is what's going to be addressed and must be applied here in order to transcend these things I'm going to share. The Aries energies, when they are in alignment to their harmonizing intentions, deal with and are meant to be clearing all of the blood sacrifice of ages. And it was during the age of Aries and the age of Taurus, as to the procession when humanity fell into the post-cataclysmic miasma and was pulled into doing dark blood rituals in service to self, and was the rise of the archetype of the tyrant. All of these things going back to when magic became corrupt in Egypt. And the cause point for that, even before what went the fuck down. Because Egypt attributes Atlantis, Lemuria, Pangaea, all of these things that I've shared with you. In terms of traditions, the Egyptian is not the oldest. Further here, Aries energies are meant to slay the inner tyrant and bring back the seat of the original template. So to distortions with the sun and planetary grid systems, this also took place during that time and is meant to be corrected. So as to clear the dark Egyptian timeline dead cloud, this energy and alignment is meant to clear out our primal fears and set the planetary gate with Mars in action to destroy the hybridization agendas. Mars timelines to this, in the effects of war, in context to past lives, to present, are what Aries individuals deal with. So taking its energy and using the energy of fire for clearing the instinctual mind, clears the inverted reversal codes and reptilian genetic distortions. The element of fire here in context to Aries also dismantles and destroys the Thothian shields in context to inversion. And as I've stated, what all of this goes into with the Magi, Grail, Shaman segment, the elemental harness that can take place with the fire energy of Aries also clears the Caduceus veil and lower fourth dimension memories and distortion instruction sets to the counterfeit grid works when it comes to the Metatronics, and clearing all of these hook-ins into the fourth dimension lower astral grid works, and is what the energy of the god of war attributes in alignment. Otherwise, it's used in fashion to host and feed and be used in context to the archetype of the tyrant seated on its throne to enslave the mind on an unconscious level. And on an unconscious level, Aries individuals can feel very oppressed from within themselves, depending on planetary placements and aspects in terms of elemental consciousness. And when taken into the experience of the world, Aries must remember that you are your own worst enemy, in context to shadow to the victim-victimizer programming, which tends to project itself to the inner tyrant, if it's not slain, to the inner battles that can take place, which must be overcome and routed the fuck out in terms of wholeness. Aries has 4 stars designated, Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, Aratus, as well as Hamal, which is the brightest star in the constellation of Aries, the wild ram of fire that sprang forth Ganungagap in context to the womb of creation, to that which seeded the primal sound fields and set forth the aeons. Aries individuals are encouraged to go into the areas of the physical body as to the brain field, the cerebral hemispheres, the cranium, the eyes, the face, the upper jaw, the internal carotid arteries, the thalamus gland, and the adrenals, in order to rectify these things on a multidimensional level, and is where certain things can be affected here in context to its inversion. And see, the first stages of initiation are represented in the constellation of Aries. This is the beginning of the alchemical rites of initiation and takes root the purification of one's consciousness through the process of exposure to the elements of fire, and will apply intense heat and force and pressure upon these areas. And with the process of heating the body with the aura to a very high temperature without the element of water applied with it, this can be highly fucking dangerous, okay? It will cause a loss of moisture and ensue reduction or oxidation within the prima materia when it comes to your physical vessel. So to break things down into simpler substances in order to prepare and remove blockages and debris, again, it is the magic of fire, water, the Scorpio to Mars that must be accessed, which I will be getting into later with this segment. Fire alone cannot remove what must be removed here in context. And it is the organic activation process of that portion of Kundalini that works in tandem with life force energy to the process of purification when it comes to the flesh, when it comes to your bones, and when it comes to your blood. And when all of this is activated within the tailbone, it must happen organically. Otherwise, it will rip through your system and potentially fry out your mechanics, which are necessary in order to integrate through the layers and distortions in order to access the original template. Again, it's fine so long as life force energy is worked in tandem, access via the heart to high heart energy centers. You don't want to fry out your fucking system, guys, okay? So when it's done correctly, all of this begins to travel upward in the central vertical channel as to pull up the energy from the lower triangle with the original template. This reoccurs again and again and again, many times organically during the process of initiation stages we experience in terms of integration and wholeness to healing through this shit. And remembering, and will always follow the alchemical principles to their conclusion when it comes to the full rites of initiation. Next, we're going to move into Taurus. The alchemical theme in terms of the Taurus energies is all about congelation and transformation. The elemental relationship in terms of Taurus energy is earth. It tends to be fixed, and the elemental form that must be unlocked in terms of the spindle of the energy force. Look, getting into things in context to the platonic solids, they have to be unlocked in context. And the platonic solid that is attributed to us is the hexahedron. It has 6 faces, 8 points, and 12 edges at 2,160 degrees. Take that reduced, it goes back to the 9 of the spindle of the energy force itself. I want those that are listening to pay attention to what I'm saying there in context, because this is how you unlock the gates in terms of the prima materia, in terms of the physical vessel that is being primed. The alchemical metal in terms of Taurus is copper, and women tend to have about 20% higher copper serum in their blood than men. This is another factor, because having high copper content is not good for the blood. All of this, though, relates to dimensional photon resonance and isotopic cooling. The primary planetary correlation with Taurus is Venus, and in terms of the primary embodied correlations in context to Taurus, this is everything to do with the quote-unquote incarnated identity matrix. And in terms of the energy centers, this is to do with the sacral in terms of psychosomatics. When it comes to the etheric body, it pertains to a trinity of light cells within the high heart, whose phasing creates the tachyons of the 8-sided eternal lotus seed, which begins the spark spiral return onto the higher force and backflow currents within the center of your ka. Your eternal spirit accessed the gate of soul. Earth is the element that is in support here, and is to all the clearing incarnated family timelines and inverted patriarchal and matriarchal distortions. Again, to what I was saying before, it was during the age of Aries and the age of Taurus that all of this shit went the fuck down. And in context to the procession, taking 26,000 to 50,000 years, again, to get to this point. So as to the present moments, clearing the energies and frequencies to all of that bullshit. Also, when it comes to the 100,000 years war prior, leading up to all of that shit. And as to Aldebaran, Procyon, Pleiades, Orion, and Lyra, clearing the Thethian dark seeds. Take it back to the cube, constructs, dark heart overlays. The Swadhisthana sacral chakra within the etheric body, attributed to Venus, when going back to the cataclysm, and the moon chain influences to the cataclysm of Maldek, and clearing the reversal codes of the quote-unquote lockdown and dark cube coding and inverted geometric mathematical harnessing via the Vesica Pisces distortions to take things away from the tri-wave. Again, this is going back to the womb of creation itself, the Trinity, sigil, and clearing the emotional programming related to that procreation when the womb was taken over by the dark ones. All of these mental programs that are related to our creative power and the entanglements of the will force being directed by shadow in context to mind, clearing the false inverted 7D violet ray transmissions, phantom codes, and shadow dragon entities that attempt to hijack those with the actual memories to Gaia by running dark cube coding to target their light body, which includes the inverted 7D violet ray transmissions and inverted matriarch false feminine reversals that run imposter identities pulled into the black hole systems as an internal feedback loop in the crown area running to the base of the root of the perineum and through the microcosmic orbit circuitry within the spinal column. This generates a false timeline perception by altering the consciousness body north position to invert upon itself, so that the person perceives moving towards the future timeline, but they're actually facing into the past timeline and into the AI phantom time loop. And you have to understand that this is what the fuck was amplified in 2020, everyone. straight the fuck up and hear what I'm saying, because it is verified and confirmed to what myself and others have addressed in context. Humans that go along with all of this goddamn vaccine bullshit are going to be running the AI red, violet, magenta wave programs, which are meant to feed the AI dark mother lunar gestalts in terms of the radar of mind, which are going to further spawn these quote unquote false holograms of identities, which also power up the Azazel gestalt in terms of the Metatronics. Wake the fuck up to what I'm saying right now. You people don't know magic. You don't know the occult. This is years deep with me. And I'm sharing things with you right now in terms of correlations that need to be addressed. You have to understand that this dark weapon is designed for the vilest entities to station themselves in the artificial timeline. And guys, to advanced beings here to quote unquote save humanity. Those of us that know the difference are already here and calling out the distortions for what they are. And it's coming time to know the fucking difference, as it's been addressed so many times with those that are at the forefront who know the difference. See, listen, there's a term which is access beyond all of these things, quote, visita intoria, terra rectificando, in Venice occultum lapidum, which means visit the interior of the earth, and by rectification, you will find the hidden stone. See, many speak of the sun to that which gives light to the sky. But as to the double diamond sun codex, this is resting within the core of the earth itself and is there within the core of who we are and shines 10 times brighter than the sun in the sky in terms of metaphysics. Can this be accessed? Yes, it can. And it's going to be. And here, as to Taurus, being the first portion of elemental consciousness that sprang forth after fire on the spiral and hosts two of the nearest open clusters to Earth. This is going into the poles that were sealed off in terms of the axis at a 23.4 degree, which again has taken away everything from a solar north axis, as within, as without. And the more individuals that know these things and that do the real work in context to everything, we are going to see things come back into alignment in terms of not only ourselves, but the Earth Mother herself. Ignited, it's hollow at the core frequency of consciousness that has ignited the eternal lotus. And as for Taurus, the Pleiades and the Hyades and the Hyades, both of which are visible to the naked eye, the Taurus constellation contains 15 named fixed stars: Electra, Seleno, Maia, Meryl, Astero, Alcyon, Taygeta, Atlas, Belion, Hyadum 1 and 2, Aeon, Aldebaran, Ilnath, and Al-Heka. The constellation Taurus in the past became a quote-unquote object of worship and blood sacrifice to the Merkstave energies of Ulrus, the oxbull, throughout the ages since what happened did. So to certain dynasties, after Magick became corrupt, it was to the bull god, Orisi. Yet to the Druids, it was an important object to symbolism of Ulrus, in alignment with the solar north, the Tauric being held when the sun entered its boundaries. Aldebaran is the brightest star in this constellation, and it is the eye of Taurus. The blue flame descendants of this particular order, founded by a certain ray of Melchizedek. And really quick, if you want to know what Melchizedek means in occult terms, this is in reference to the Magi. So this to the descendants that are guardians of the East, by way of the four royal stars from the star Aldebaran. Here where we stand right now, transcending into the sixth cycle, whereas the memory unto the Druids and Magi that hail the great north. This is taking things back at least 300,000 to 560 million years to the precession. So figure that in terms of what systems are out there in context to all of this inverted bullshit. It concludes what they cannot know first because they're not willing. Second, they want to be the gods, locking you down into their distorted systems within the reality field. And it's coming time for humanity to step beyond these things, and also why they are doing what they can to break your asses the fuck out. Rise and remember. And getting into alchemy when it comes to the energies of Taurus. Congelation is the process by which something congeals or thickens into a new pattern or blueprint. This increase in viscosity is to reassemble parts into different energetic patterns, thus transforming them in terms of the prima materia. This is achieved through a reduction in applied heat and through a result of the bodily chemical reactions caused by the changes in temperature and context. This is a natural result of the vacillation of active Kundalini liquid fire. Again, working with life force energy, all of this happening organically, that must work in tandem in context to the higher force and the spindle of the wand of fire. The increase in viscosity is great enough to solidify the congealed process into a new element or new substance. And in spiritual alchemy, congelation is one of the vital processes that takes place for the material bodily transformation to occur. This is the process of the eternal spirit to soul code, blood code essence ignitions. And as to the codex of our sound song frequency of consciousness, to the ignition of the assembled parts or required patterns, the eternal spirit has newly created within the layers of the body consciousness, and things to which the Taurus energies attribute. This is the neck, the throat, the palate, the larynx, the tonsils, the lower jaw, the ears, the optical region, the cerebellum, the atlas parallax on the back of the skull to its axis that will correct itself and reduce the effects of nerve induction. Because when it's not in alignment, it's at a 23.4 degree axis, causing deregulation in terms of the radar. And see, I had a student tell me this, chiropractor, professional. The correlations there blew my fucking mind. Okay, because it's also to do with the external carotid arteries, the jugular veins, the pharynx, the thyroid glands, and the cervical vertebrae, so as to the clearing of the Thethian dark seed bullshit and the inverted Anubian dark eclipsed heart miasm, supporting these horizontal grids at the 23.4 degree axis to Earth, away from the solar north. And if all of this energy in terms of Taurus is used correctly, it's going to bring the corrections in context. Next, I'm going to be getting into the energy of Gemini. The alchemical theme in context to Gemini is all about synthesis and fixation. It's the element of air and is mutable. The elemental forms in terms of platonic solids that must be unlocked all go back to the octahedron in context, which has 8 faces, 6 points, 12 edges at 1,440 degrees. In terms of being reduced, taking it back to the 9 of the spindle of the energy force. Again, this is how we are unlocking these inversions. The alchemical metal attributed Gemini is Quicksilver, and the primary planetary correlation all goes back to Mercury. Some of the embodied correlations go back to our actual incarnate identity, getting access to the raw center, in light of correspondence to the inner dialogue that is taking place. The harmonizing attentions that are attributed to Gemini include clearing all distortions connected to the triangulation that blocks the 7th gate access to the knowledge of the magicians of the elements and exposes the false masters, which all go into the New Age guru teaching and false cult-like bullshit of all of the goddess archetypes as to the ancestors, are meant to correct all of the genetic mutations and energy siphons related to the Metatronics here in context, the false aura. Now to this, the elemental re-encryption process to the false ascension timeline bullshit is part of the false aurora avatars. This is an inverted adjustment that actually changes the coordinates of your astral psychological blueprint and its genetic imprint within the Codex for navigating the 3 spirals of creation. And it's the inverted encryptions, which are sets of vibration that hold energetic intentions. Again, take it back to the inner dialogue in terms of Mercury. And every thought that a person has with these inverted encryptions takes individuals further from the alignment with the higher force. Not only that, but the aura re-encryptions that the energy of Gemini brings forth in context, which is to return the divine blueprint that is encrypted within our silicate matrix as the crystal star attributed to the actual Christos. Again, I've not denied this. And in turn, everything on the highest level is to do with the union of the divine masculine and divine feminine templating embodied here in Midgard in terms of relation, and is what these pieces of shit sell you, not giving you the real occult knowledge and context to what the twin flame actually is. And I'm going to crush that shit because the birthright in terms is what they have done everything they can to make sure this does not happen here on Earth. So fuck them. The real here in terms of corrections. And when we incarnated here on Earth, we had to face this massive miasmic package that is attached to the collective human mental and emotional bodies. So to make the corrections and to bring forth the power of what is beyond the inverted distortions and ascend here on Earth. Look, this is Magi, Grail, Shaman, proper knowledge and wisdom. And that's why those who are actual flame keepers and template holders have faced what they have. I know it's why I faced what the fuck I have. I can really only ever speak for myself. But because of what we are facing, inverted forms to shadow and eclipsed phantom sun bodies. This is what attributes the dark hearts to the influence of the Svartalfar, the Dog Alfar as well. And it's to note that these phantom bodies are what connects humans to the timeline set course September 11th, 2001, 9/11. And with the Alpha Omega agenda connected to the dark alien constructs and grids that were laced out in the reality field after that fucking day. Activations and initiations took place before that in the year 2000, with many of us that know the difference, including myself and others, which is why all of this has happened, leading up to the present moments, all of this fucking contrast, all right, you guys, the transduction sequence is the very definition of when the soul spark ignites and connects to the core manifestation body and the true universal tree of life on the three spirals of creation, which then projects out the elemental consciousness on the solar spiral of creation within the physical manifested body. And as we know, these dark projects were designed to re-encrypt reversals and distortions within the elemental structure of our bodies, as well as anchor their inverted architecture to build the anti-unity source code reversals. Is this starting to make more sense to anyone that's hearing this? And see the corrections here in context that must take place. I meant to change the false 9/11 timeline architecture and grids is what all of that was about in terms of seeding consciousness and giving birth to the original template in terms of divine union. You have to understand that the template of authentic twin flames in context to the real occult knowledge of what that is has been highly, highly misrepresented by the New Age movement to the idea that everyone is this or everyone has one. Again, if that were the case, then the earth would not be in the state that it is in right now at present. Positions those that are flame keepers and template holders above. Because the fact is we go through more shit and hell than a lot of fucking people out there. As to what's on the other end of the equation in context. In terms of a council session I recently did, there was more revealed in session in terms of what I got into than all of the bullshit that I see still being peddled out in context. And so there are certain things out there that are actually designed to discredit and distort what all of this actually is. Mind you, more is going to be revealed. And the authentic twin flame template is an ultra high level template of consciousness in terms of what the energies of Gemini represent. Union with the higher force, union with ourselves. And as to ignite the power of what flows between the two, contained. And as to the power of the third energy and the higher force itself here on earth, it is to seed and give birth to consciousness, which in turn dismantles and corrects all of these distorted grid works that we're dealing with. And there's enough power to remove all of the dark alien AI etheric machinery within the mechanics of the mental and emotional bodies as to the physical body. And I'm talking about the knowledge. Anybody out there can be a steward of knowledge, but to be a keeper, you would have had to have somehow known this since the time you were very young. As it's been with me, the things that I've known, there was something much bigger going on than what the fuck I saw around me, even right now. And if that's what's being dealt with, so through implants and seals and mind control and mind slide, quote unquote, holographic inserts and frequency fencing bullshit, there's certain things in context to memory when it comes to Gemini going to the Orion Wars. And see, look, this is all about clearing out all of that solipsistic and postmodern bullshit, service to self only programs running the consciousness mind of most humans on Earth right now still. We must clear to its judgment and hammer strikes. The wrath and rage turned against us, and all of the unhinged hostility projected, and even more malignant in terms of the unjustified violence to a vampiric consciousness and lack of power that is fucked with our perceptions within the reality field otherwise. This is to clear all of the inverted ego issues that separate the will force in terms of self-awareness and consciousness in alignment. And it has to take place in order to prepare for the soul merge that takes place with all of this in context to gates, whether separation has happened or not, to the template because of battles and all these things that I got into with Aries and Taurus, and here in terms of astropsychology and planetary high magic with the energies of Gemini. This is what all of this actually is in terms aside what the personal blueprint of an individual would reveal in context to planetary placements, let alone aspects that again are driving the planetary gates on the solar spiral of creation itself. So to alchemy, when it comes to Gemini, fixation here refers to a process by which a previously volatile substance is transformed into a form often solid and is not affected by fire or heat. The air element separates the substance and rearranges it back into the same shape at a subatomic level. This is the process which transforms the subatomic levels of the body's energetic blueprint and is a continual progress of mastering the law of polarity through its synthesis while dealing with these unstable forces set against us, which are then transformed into a higher, more stable form. So you're going to reach a point where all of these things will not have an effect on you knowing the difference. And the fixation is one of the processes required for transformation of a base substance to the alchemical rites of initiation and the magnum opus through the subatomic structure. This is the process of polarity integration that is happening between the newly reassembled parts of adding or subtracting distortions and adding the required patterns being synthesized into the body consciousness on a multidimensional level. The tri-wave, in context 2-3, being Gemini, represents the first individuation from the higher force in the physical form of man and woman. That is how things manifest in context to the law of gender within all dimensions and all grid works of consciousness on the three spirals of creation. And the reason this happened is so that the higher force could know itself. The mystery of mysteries. The potential for electron and proton merge to manifest the neutral or third field of creation, the third energy itself. This is what the fuck we've been cut off from in context to the tri-wave template and pulls things into the inverted limitations of the Vesica Pisces holographic architecture, which was hijacked by the Dark Ones, in which they invert the bi-wave geometry to the Metatronics, and it's everything in context to do with the Giovanni collective keyed into the dark alien machinery and AI to generate energy harvesting devices in terms of your beingness by throwing things into frequency fences and subatomic harnesses with the Aries energies to Taurus to Gemini, all of this in context. And if you're a template holder, and this is what you have had to personally face, this is why. They hijacked, again, the womb of creation. And the geometry, there was a primary device used in the dark alien grid systems to distort the spinning rotational axis of the actual Merkaba field itself. That's what locks it in. And in turn must be pulled to their points with the triangles to make the portal in context to Ingwas. And this is what I teach as to the original template. And as this goes into things with the fire letter rune Codex to Ingwas, which without implodes staff currents to the electric energies and results in monadic magnetic reversals with its power unless corrections in terms are made. The Gemini constellation is an integral part in terms of what has been targeted on the galactic spirals of creation's dark agendas and ability to run inverted bi-wave currents into the planetary grid network for a variety of purposes, being the cause point for a host of distortions related, keeping all of this shit locked the fuck down in reversals and polaric duality, sexual misery, and gender reversal programming. Look at all this shit that's been in our faces. Again, it's time to recognize what the fuck is actually going on in terms of the procession and the communist agenda. All of this has been warned about over and over and over again. That is what the fuck happens. And in order to disrupt or destroy the unifying potential of the light body codex within the DNA of the human being, the first directive would be to attack the inner and outer gender principle and to fully attack and confuse all matters in regards to the law of gender and the law of polarity, which are a part of what governs the natural cosmic laws of creation itself. And here, again, we're at the spearhead of evolution, or are we going into involution and de-evolution, motherfuckers? See, everything here in context happens where we stand. So to promote all of the counterfeit creations through inciting confusion and trying to obliterate the knowledge of the light body and soul to spin confusion in inverted sexual conduct and concepts of partnership, let alone divine partnership to the templating, as with men, as with women, these evil fucking pieces of shit and what they have done with their dark agendas are trying to destroy our world and instill gender confusion. And see, what's even worse from here is then they start to blend human bodies with goddamn fucking machines into the fucking Borg. You see what's going to fucking happen if this continues? You're not going to know who the fuck you are, and you're going to be assimilated. And now that everyone is made potentially miserable through all of this dire shit that they've set forth and that people are buying, they're trying to steer our reactions away from the solutions necessary and in place, bring forth their solution in context to what they set forth, getting the reaction and packages that shit as liberation. All of that transhumanism and transgenderism is not liberation. It is the deliberate destruction and eradication of everything that makes us human. And we are here to master being human. They want to fucking annihilate our potential for multidimensional awareness and crush what develops and expands human consciousness. And for years now, it is evident that the shit that they want to inject into our children's bloodstream, what do you think it's going to fucking do? It intentionally dilutes to control human genetics to be guided into the guardrails of the transhuman agenda, along with everything else, which will result in many mutations in current human behavior, digressing into a hive mind mentality even fucking harder. And see, this is really difficult to know what the fuck I know. I am a man of consciousness. Where are the men of consciousness? Where are the women of consciousness? We are not slave to the dark agendas, and all of you need to take a hard look into the mirror in terms of this, because in order to be informed and awake to the current agendas, this is not a fucking option, okay? Awareness is not a fucking option. Expansion of consciousness and integration in terms of that happens, path work that you're actually doing. But being aware of what the fuck is going on around us is not a fucking option. And focus on what is beyond all of this bullshit and claim the birthright. And in terms of the original template, if you go against this, you're part of the ultimate fucking evil here on earth because you're fucking confused, which is only going to further confuse and traumatize the younger generations coming up. You fucking pieces of shit. You do on your own accord. But in terms of how cosmic law operates, all of this in terms force their anti-light programming throughout culture. This is what all of you are part of otherwise. And as to Gemini, what it represents, the gestation and revealing of what union is all about. The sum parts of anything is three. So at the third gate here in terms, the template of man and woman, let alone the divine templating, all of this bleeds through everything. Again, on a multidimensional level and cannot and will never, ever be able to be refuted in the art and science of astropsychology. Next, we're going to be getting into the Cancerian energy. The alchemical theme and context is all about dissolution and dismantling. 4 is the energy of foundation. It's everything to do with the element of water and the elemental form in terms of platonic solids. All goes back the icosahedron. It has 30 edges and 20 faces at 3,600 degrees. Reduced, taking it back to the 9 of the spindle of the energy force itself. The alchemical metal for the Cancerian energy is silver, and the primary planetary correlation goes back to the moon, goes back to the roots, goes back to foundation. And to that, the embodied correlations is all about soul code access and the heart core consciousness. The harmonizing intentions that are attributed to Cancer are to clear all of the service to self only and victimizer programming to the inner tyrant. Clear imposter spirits, clear the 5D false ascension timelines and overlays, and it is to reclaim the soul fragments and extensions and synthesize all into a single soul code occupancy. It is the energy necessary to end all of the lower astral delusions, to clear the Zeta seal, initiate the heart-brain harmonics, activate the light body wings and inner sacred union, and clear all of the dark heart network connections to the Metatronics and reversals. The alchemy that this specific energy is meant to be used as to planetary consciousness, and also the aspects. This is the dismantling phase from unnecessary substances. As you could say, is the first gate of actual initiation. The first 3 energies, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, all fall subject here to this gate, and therefore, if integrated properly, will lay the right foundation in terms of actual initiation. Energies are objects that have been shifted from the alchemical synthesis of the polarity integration of forces. There is a process of resolving emotional body issues, dissolving into parts or elements in the shifting field of the energetic consciousness. This phase can be deeply emotional, and it can be deeply buried in the subconscious mind field and bring forth the waters in terms of purging that is taking place within the first 3 gates in context, and brings the bomb forth the waters in terms of all the deep soul wounds as to the procession. In the actual ascension process, which again is happening here on Earth, the Cancerian energy has heavy ancestral genetic pattern components that can influence certain miasms that will manifest in the physical body if not dealt with. And with its energy brings forth the dismantling necessary to tap the primal forces and resolve emotional energy blocks in the shifting terrain in terms of energetic consciousness. This purging that the waters bring forth is required for dismantling and removing the subconscious blockages within the mind field, and happens in several stages throughout the ascension process. And in terms of the law of rhythm, the energy here expresses the principle that between the opposing poles of polarity in everything, there is a manifested and measured motion of energy, an outflow and inflow, a swing backwards and forward, which expresses as a pendulum-like movement. There is a rhythm and a gate of harmony between every pair of opposites, otherwise triangulated in terms of the poles within individuals when it comes to the positive and negative charge of the energy force itself, which is always undulating and always changing in terms of outward manipulation to fuck with the spindle of the energy force. Everyone, again, must understand what's really going on and what all of this entails in context to manipulation. We are not each other's fucking enemies. And if you're going to cross a certain fucking line and disrespect me, that's nothing I'm going to tolerate. This is about being spiritually mature and knowing the difference and knowing what the fuck is going on with all this manipulation, especially when it comes to the water element, given the fact that your bodies, your physical bodies, are 65% water, and you're listening to a master water magician. I didn't incarnate to brave the waters of your storms. I came here to show you how to master the waters so that fire can be achieved. You want to go and disrespect that and what my position is? And in terms of everything I've come up against with everything without completely caving the fuck in, you don't know who the fuck you are fucking with otherwise. I hold to the integrity of what I stand for and who I am, and respect those that know the difference when it comes to all of this. So as to continue now, when things are in alignment to the law of rhythm, understand that our mental state and biorhythm is also going to be governed by the patterns of oscillating movements with the macrocosm, the rising and the falling and getting the fuck back up again, pulling ourselves out of the inverted cycles of creation and destruction, and bringing it into a place of co-creation and expansion, and bring things to power, knowing the difference with our stellar alignments and astrological influences in terms with our blueprint and navigations to the solar spiral of creation. And with the awareness of how this will potentially manifest in our lives, we can adjust ourselves to return to the energetic balance and harmony when we feel the pendulum thrusting or backwards or into extremes and inversions, let alone pulling people into the inverted black hole fucking bullshit. You catch it here at this gate specifically. You got to catch it at all the gates, but if you don't get this one and you don't lay the proper foundation here in terms and in context, see, I'm here to remind you of what your true power is, to not only know the difference here in terms of knowledge, but knowing how to apply these things to your actual existence, knowing the difference and experiencing what all of this entails. And to find our energetic balance in terms of the law of rhythm, we look for finding moderation and conservation in the use of our energy, mastering our thought and emotion and our behavior, and returning ourselves back to harmony before we end up suffering from the consequences of unresolved bullshit on the extreme to an inner and outer imbalance. We must know when to take action and when to hold patience in all areas of our existence. And it's one of the keys in context to self-mastery. And when we gain higher awareness of this principle, again, through witnessing within the fulcrum of the circle of the magician, this is the transcendental state of consciousness, grounded and allows us to rise above the swing of the pendulum. And when we are strong and capable to maintain organization from within ourselves, facing the chaos first, we are then able to act in alignment to our highest purpose and spiritual mission. And you will remember even more of what the fuck is actually going on in terms with everything. In terms of the physical body, the Cancerian energy deals with the stomach, the esophagus, the diaphragm, the chest, the lacteals, the upper lobes of the liver, the thoracic duct, the pancreas, serum within the blood, the peristasis of the stomach, gastric fluids, and the pituitary gland. Next, we're going to get into the energy of Leo. The alchemical theme in context to Leo energies is all about digestion and conversion. It is the element of fire, and it tends to be fixed. And in terms of the elemental form, taking it to the Platonic solids, this is everything to do with the tetrahedron. It has 4 faces, 4 points, 6 edges at 720 degrees. See, we're going back to the element of fire. What was attributed to the tetrahedron before? It was Aries. And again, 720 degrees reduced goes back to the 9 of the spindle of the energy force. And again, as I'm going to explain with each gate, is how we are unlocking and dismantling the lockdown equation in terms of geometrics. The planetary correlation for the energy of Leo is the sun, and the alchemical metal attributed is gold. The harmonizing attentions attributed to Leo energy go into what the archetypal mind actually is, and is the fire of the blazing soul spark ignition that starts to crack open the gates of true intelligence, and in turn is attributed to the awakening of the ancestors in terms of blood codes and soul code genetics in alignment with your eternal spirit. This is directly associated with the heart, 2 high heart, and throat energy centers. And as to the original template, are bridged in context to the integration process that is taking place. So to release all of these fucking programs to the distorted arcs in context to the Metatronics. This is also to clear and remove things in terms of the ancestors in context to the 5th cycle, and to set forth agreements with them and to establish connection that is also in the process of freeing them as within as without. As I was hailed, maybe some of you have also been hailed. The ancestors are looking to us. The gods are looking to us. And it's to be fed lines of consciousness that are beyond all the bullshit and break the parasite with the blazing fire of true intelligence, and will expose, if used correctly, the false ascension programs, on top of all of this other bullshit going on in the reality field that have worked to be implemented, knowing the difference. The gates of true intelligence will have cracked open in terms. And in order to do this, you must, with this energy, amplify your personal sovereignty in terms of your eternal spirit to soul code, blood code, essence, and unify the heart, brain, and brain field as to the upper triangle templating within the fulcrum of the circle, and will blend and merge the positive and negative charge of the energy force and its ignition to the wand of fire that takes place when 0 and 9 are in alignment. Here with this energy, it is to courageously express your position and to speak forth all that does not align to our highest good or our highest expression. Here at this gate, to pull things into alignment on the solar spiral is to see yourself as whole, is to see yourself as healed, to see yourself as you are at the core, and to bridge the solar rift within the solar body codex. It will cleanse the spine and digestive organs and build and maintain impeccability, invincibility, and the vital energy of the heroic pathwork and probability of absolute success in the face of many challenges. Leo energy generates the inner sun path of singular devotion and embodiment of the higher force and soul spark and core ignitions, and is to share the brilliance of your true eternal nature in context to who you really are. And in terms of the alchemical rites of initiation, digestion is a process in terms of the prima materia. And see, it's also a process of the spirit. You got to digest all that shit that you're fucking carrying. You got to break it down. It's got to go through this process. The same fucking thing on every single level, metaphysically speaking. And again, the physical body to which gentle heat is applied to a substance over and over several weeks to change the composition of a newly combined element. Think of this in context to all the shit that's accumulated in terms of mind, like I was just saying. Same concept. So this is the fire of the Athanor taking things to another level in terms of the first eye. And see, the first eye is not the third eye. The first eye is right. The first eye is there within your core. That's where you see. And if the gates of true intelligence haven't cracked open and you're not able to see as a seer or seeress, someone that has very acute discernment, then your soul spark is still eclipsed. And the way that you are processing the will force in your life is coming from an eclipsed process. So to remove the blindfold, so to speak, from the first eye and see through everything right into the fucking core of who you are, routing out all of the detritus in terms of metaphysics on a multidimensional level. This is the absorption and assimilation process of the new body substance or energetic elements that have shifted, which were either removed or added into the body consciousness. And all of the old emotional states and the ways that you are processing. See, you have to understand something about the soul spark and how it operates. Going back to the initiations that I've gotten into with people, it is the trunk of your tree. It is where everything is converging. It is where everything is being processed. And if that processor is all fucked up in terms of your radar and what it's either keyed into or not keyed into, you could have all the knowledge in the fucking world about truth, about freedom, about all of these different things, but you wouldn't still be able to process it correctly because the way you're processing is coming from a place of being eclipsed. You're still all up in your fucking head and you have not dropped down to experience the level of pain that it actually fucking takes to crack open the gates of your true intelligence. And again, embracing pain as a teacher to show you how you're actually processing shit. And it's also to state that pain is weakness leaving the body, leaving all of your bodies on a multidimensional level. Pain is weakness leaving. Take that as wisdom. Because again, what's on the other side is true power, in alignment, and groundedness, and that sense of true inner peace, knowing the difference. You will face the hordes, but when you come forth blazing, 10 times brighter than the sun in the sky itself, that's the mark. That's the mark of the first eye, blazing like the torch of aeons. So again, to all of the old templating distortions, overlays, miasms, whatever the fuck, is that really how you want to be processing your existence? Is that really how you want to see things from the first eye? Is that really the vision that you have been given at the core? The vision that you have been given for your life is something that's been blanketed over your fucking process. And then you wonder why. But as to the vision that's been given me, I have seen well beyond what a lot of people can still imagine. And I'm only one person. I do not claim to know everything, but I do know what the fuck I know as it's been confirmed. So, again, all of the things that people are locked into in terms of the unnecessary energies being wasted and accumulated here, once that ignition happens, start to be eliminated. And chemically, as by the actions of enzymes, the new energies that are experienced with all of this are converted into deeper assimilation into the body's elemental and planetary consciousness on the solar spiral. This is a process of digesting on all levels that brings the actual change of one's consciousness. This is how it happens. And again, one of the main secrets with the moon and the sun is you want thought and emotion and alignment with the gates of true intelligence. Otherwise, your radar is fucking off and you're static and you're confused. So as to the lower template, pulling up into the center of the chest and down from the upper template. When observing the Irminsul sigil to the 4 cardinal directions on this segment, this is some of the most ancient and pure teaching, taking it back to the original, a 3-core chakra system on the 9, on the 12, which gives you access to the 13th gate. You're not getting it otherwise. Again, you're going to have a head full of information and knowledge. This has to be experienced. That's the whole point. And I want you to experience it. Because without that trajectory, no matter what you're doing on the outside to whitewash whatever the fuck is going on, it's not going to be met in terms of that ignition. You got to burn it out from the inside out and from the outside in at the same time. From the inside out, from the outside in. As within, as without. It's the law of correspondence, and there's no getting away from this. That's why you're still layered up. So in terms of the process of digesting on all levels, that brings the actual change to one's consciousness, like I was saying, by shifting the experience you want to actually be having. This will be the result of the resolution and completion of old energetic patterns that lock you the fuck down. That's what the fuck they amplified. All of the undealt with bullshit. So as within, we have to burn and digest more of what we can accurately see in the fucking world with everything. We are able to resolve and move through all of the pain that has to be faced, like I was saying, cracking open the gates. But to the wholeness and healing waters that spring forth the Athanor. This allows us to see the truth even deeper. And it can be hard, and it can be a hard process with all of this, but wherever you have Leo going on in terms of your personal blueprint, this is what's going on in context on a deeper esoteric level. So as to the core ignitions that are taking place, digesting the bullshit within this reality allows us to eventually experience a greater knowledge to potentially all things. Knowing the difference, and in terms of the physical body, Leo is to the heart, the dorsal region of the spine, your spinal cord, the aorta, the superior and inferior vena cava, and the thymus in terms of the bridge to the throat, which is the beginning of the process, integrating back into the original template from the core in terms of the alchemical rites of initiation. From the heart to the high heart to the throat, all becoming one energy center, just as you see in terms of the graphics here. Next, we're going to go into the energy of the 6th gate with Virgo. The alchemical theme in terms of the Virgo energies are distillation and purity. This is in terms of mutable earth energies. And as to the geometric form, this goes back to the hexahedron. And in terms of the cube, it has 6 faces, 8 points, and 12 degrees at 2,160 degrees. Reduced, which is 9, taking it back to the spindle of the energy force. The planetary correlations to the energy of Virgo are Mercury and Jupiter. And the alchemical metals attributed are quicksilver and tin. The harmonizing intentions attributed to the energy of Virgo are to cleanse and tighten and repair the axonal ley lines from within yourself. And when enough people do the real work in context within themselves, as unto the earth. Virgo is the earth element. It is mutable. It is the earth Scorpio. And by establishing and refining the planetary grid system relations, the process and repattern of the inverted sacred geometries, which have been laced throughout the reality field, are not only exposed for what they are, but they will lose their power in terms of the lockdown. This will amplify the energy transmissions necessary for healing the natal body electrical system recalibration and integrate polarity in the flow of unity consciousness and greatly assist in synthesizing our eternal spirit to soul code, blood code essence in alignment and into our biology, physically speaking. This will clear and terminate any dark coding to these inverted grid works and break the links and impacts false sacred geometries. The energy of Virgo in context also clears the mental and emotional bodies in terms of the etheric body and releases all layers of our bodies on a multidimensional level from the false ascension program, like I've been talking about, and the lockdown equation, and will cleanse and recalibrate your third eye so as to see clearly everything for what it really is here in terms with that lens and make that connection moving through the gates on the solar spiral creation, and will then position you and then will position you to enter through the next gate, which is the most important to access in terms of everything that the segment is going to entail. Everything is important, but where all of this takes things, especially in terms of the magicians of the elements. There are some out there who have come to a certain point with everything, but too many still are seemingly caught in all the nets, traps, and snares, otherwise having not even mastered the first gate in context to the circle of the magician. That's where you take it back to and utilize it the correct way. And that's what it is actually meant for. I am not in the business of conjuring, invoking, or summoning anything in context to incantations or any lesser spirits. This is about the ignition and alignment, again, of your own eternal spirit to soul code, blood code essence, and eradicating the miasma. And see, the thing here to remember that is, if we carry intergenerational traumas, this has nothing to do with your true identity. And unto Virgo, the Virgo energy, this is all about making practical the spiritual. Virgo is the healer. Virgo is all about organization, details, working very, very hard through all of these things. And it is to say that the Virgo energy is the primer in terms of integration to the intergenerational wisdom that is revealed in terms of the Codex when you are practically able to apply these things spiritually to your existence. It's within our Codex. And again, it's the birthright of generations for us to access with the next gate, as within, as without. The alchemy associated with Virgo energies will set course the continual process of purification, as to the internal energies which separate the unnecessary dross, and is designed to remove the contaminants. The goal is to acquire a concentration of the holy, natural, essential substance. Again, the practical magic starting to reveal itself. All of the tinctures, all of the minerals, all of the herbs, all of the different things put together in context to magics, earth magics. Virgo is the primer in context. And the wisdom of the earth, Scorpio. The combination of those two energies are the cosmic sleuth. And you cannot fuck with that combination. And you cannot fuck with that combination. It's a very interesting one to hold. But knowing the practical application of all things spiritual, that is what is going to set course and remove the contaminants to achieve the goal acquired in the concentration of the holy, natural, essential substance. It could take years to master. But wherever things are is how the pure energetic consciousness of the higher force is distilled. And it is the process of accessing and obtaining the true essence of who you are, the distilling its spirit substance into our body and the earth itself. And at this phase of refinement with our internal energies and eternal spirit in relation to our physical bodies, the Virgo energies, the energy of Virgo is associated with the large and small intestines, the lower lobes of the liver, the spleen, the thymus secretions that's actually experienced when the gold of consciousness starts to reveal itself. This is also to do with the peristalsis of the bowels, flushing away and moving away with mutable earth. The Taurus energy can be hard, and it's like that as well with the earth magician. But here with the Virgo energies, the secrets of earth magic are being unearthed in terms of the earth Scorpio. It's the unearthing of what is actually there underneath the surface, and all correlates with the gates and the process is happening simultaneously in terms of your personal disposition. And so now next, we are going to dive into the most important gate in terms of this art and science that are unto the gates of wisdom and everything to do with the energy of Libra. The alchemical theme in terms of the Libra energies are all about sublimation and transmutation. The element of Libra is air. Now, as to the seventh gate in terms of the solar spiral creation, it is in the process of spiritual ascension that we are meant to elevate our consciousness. Unless we access the streamline from the very first gate in terms of the circle all the way up to the seventh. And this is about breaking the triangulation, take to everything that's already been explained. And when we access the gates of wisdom to this specific kind of energy, is where this energy, this is revealing to the individual where this needs to happen. Whether again to planetary placement, aspect driving, the energy is there for you. The energy is there for you to use in terms. Otherwise, you are still operating on lower level planetary consciousness and elemental consciousness. But to the wisdom of water, to the wisdom of fire, to the wisdom of air, to the wisdom of earth, access your eternal spirit. When that happens, it's where you naturally learn to sublimate and transform the inverted mental and emotional states of mind and all of the inverted energies that slam the gates of wisdom the fuck shut. See, they're starting to crack open at the fifth gate. Things are being unearthed in terms of the sixth, and now the seventh, that's where it's accessed. That's where you cross the threshold. And in terms of everything that's going on, people need to cross the threshold. Everything I speak about, I swear to the gods, it's all happening on a multidimensional level here. And I'm not the only person here on Earth. And in light of the confirmations, as I've explained in terms of dimensions, is happening from the sixth dimension downward on the spiral into the third dimension with all of the labyrinth and counterfeit bullshit. But if this is accessed, and as we develop the observer consciousness as within the gates of wisdom, then we override the triangulation factors that are held within the reality field, and we are not affected by any of them, seeing it all again for what it is. And we're able to witness our mental and emotional capacity with the radar of mind and see all of the external events for what they are, without identifying that we are that in terms of relation. What the fuck are we to do with the slave state of mind and fear and bullshit? Nothing. We're nothing to do with it. And being able to gauge and see this shit, I'm telling you, you work with these arts and sciences, you do the real work. All of these events that are taking place, we can alchemically transform them and turn all of this shit around into right responses and wisdom. There is a time to hold our ground, and then there is a time to strike. And if you don't have a strategy in terms of wisdom, then you are subject to the Dark One's manipulations in context to fear. And to sublimate these things that happen into the higher substances, we can access spiritual to physical power in harmony. This arranges the energetic environment into the highest expression of wisdom. Sublimation is a part of the witnessing that is taking place, which is developed through a deepened awareness of yourself. How are you reacting to things? You are responsible for your own condition. The way that you are being is what you have to recognize, and not shifting blame on anything other than what is in the mirror reflecting back to you. And see, in a world of multiplicity, most are keyed into that Borg mind of what the Dark Ones set forth in terms of sound, consciousness, energy, frequency, vibration, to all of their constructs and their grid works. And then you just react instead of becoming self-aware of not only your body and higher consciousness, but being able to access the gates of wisdom to proper knowledge and position yourself to be the eternal student. Because unless you position yourself to be the eternal student, you cannot have potentially all things revealed to you. I will forever be the eternal student. We can learn to observe thought and emotion and energies and know where they're all coming from in all ways. And through the elevated consciousness skills we gain in redirecting discordance and disharmony within a situation, within ourselves, this naturally increases the energetic harmony as within, as without. And once we distill the inner spirit, the next ascension stages in terms of what is happening on ground level that we will experience are the natural sublimations and transmutations of all of the inverted energies around us. And this is very powerful, what I'm sharing with you, and it works. And if we're going to dismantle all of this bullshit and see through with the energy of the crown and the upper triangle to the original template and remove the consciousness implants that were there in terms of the etheric body, taken back to psychosomatics, there's some things here I'm going to take time to get into that are ultra important to understand in terms of the procession. And all of this is going to explain and expose the behavioral effects to these things so that you will have a profile to access, knowing the difference with what all of this entails. Afterwards, I will continue getting into the gates in context. Now, things in terms of triangulation, like I've been talking about for years, has to be seen for what it is. And I'm saying this with the utmost care and power to eradicate and rectify otherwise. In the application of an artificial intelligence implant as a sexual misery or victimizer, tyrant frequency reversal codex, its mechanism acts like a tick and burrows itself deep into the lower areas of the etheric body, mostly into the first and second layers of the perineum and sexual organs. And implant the sexual organs directly impacts the instinctual relations and emotional response functions, which run stimulated impulses into the spinal cord, into the brain, and throughout the central nervous system. Many implants are also targeted to the nerval plexus at the base of the skull, which is the location of the atomic doorway, the axis area into the medulla oblongata, where the inner spiritual light reflects out of the eyes of the embodied monad. If all of these other things in turn are happening and it's not dealt with on a level, the inner light starts to die, or this can bring about a dead look in the eyes after other things like mind control implant fully takes control over the fucking body and throughout the central nervous system manipulation. I'm so fucking pissed off of having to share these things with you, everyone. You have no idea how hard all of this is for me to address. This happens in terms of triangulation to block the spiritual body in terms of access with the seventh gate, and tries to prevent that from coming into the embodiment of the physical layers. It is common to target etheric implants into the reptilian brain field as to amplify many fear-based thoughts, and can be placed in a structure of the brainstem via the medulla oblongata. This is a way to manipulate the atomic impulse sent to the brain in order to change perception or stimulate thought via the inverted ego mechanism to shadow, which triggers activity in the lower three layers of the subconscious to unconscious portions of the mind field. If this is taking place, and until a person can realize that this is happening to them through some kind of default bullshit made within their atomic nervous system, which takes things into fight or flight, it becomes difficult to shift their perceptions out of the inverted ego to shadow reactions in context to all of this stimulated and amplified by the goddamn fucking implants. Since Virgo is the earth element, and Virgo is the healer in context, it is the seventh gate to wisdom that must be accessed, let alone the wisdom of the magicians of the elements and shaman, giving context to other gates I'm going to be getting into, and sever the sub-programs feed into all of these multiple layers in terms of your light body codex. And as you work within the circle of the magician and bring your energy, centering your essence into the heart-based, non-mental relationship as to the original template, you spring forth the divine in terms of the well of words. There are many healers out there, one of which I am going to recommend to people because he is absolutely proficient in terms of his practice. At the same time, a true healer is going to teach you how to heal yourself and not only deal in surfaces. Things on this level apply to protocol teaching to return your body to the eternal living codex in terms of the nectar of immortality. Again, this is our fucking birthright, and we must claim it and see ourselves as worthy of it and own it and own this shit to be extracted in terms and to terminate and remove all of these intermediaries and artificial and all of the false programming that doesn't serve your highest purpose and ascension here on earth, let alone what your actual mission is to clear out and to destroy this shit. And by doing so, you will crush the dark ones where they stand and send them back once they came to the sub-realms of the lower astral and seal off the rift, access points within your system mechanics. This will release all of the karmic miasms that are there within the blood in context to the ancestors. In turn, it's the ancestral records to what is beyond this shit that is going to reveal themselves to you and will destroy the parasite as to the old ones through your biological ascension process on a multidimensional level. And with the authentic, loving intention to power, declare, and command, and claim your sovereign rights to the birthright and choose clear through soul protection and unconditional forgiveness for all the shit that you have experienced as to lifetimes. As to the ancestors, whether or not you were aware, let alone unaware, of that which rises. Remove the parasitic and distorted associations to the effects of all of this has had in terms of identity. You got to clear through and into the core essence of who you truly are and seek and ask the higher force and the higher self to delete all of this bullshit throughout all time and space and beyond to anything that is inorganic in terms of unity consciousness. Clear the crown and remove false logos, the inversion programming and energy architecture, as well as the timeline of monadic field invasion. So again, what the fuck do you think COVID is? It's the dark crown. And as has been stated, the sword of the north is ripping through the reality field to crush this shit where it stands. And depends on your knowing the difference here. These are terms and semantics. You can say it any way you want, but to welcome the return of the true light code codex of the higher force and into your mind field, and the brain, and the central vertical columns, nervous systems within the circle of the magician, you will know the higher force. You will know the universe. You will know the gods and goddesses. You will come to know thyself in terms of your true identity. This is why throwing the circle of the magician is so goddamn important as to the initiation into the mystery school. But what's even more real is divine intelligence. There's other people that have been addressing these things for years. But you need to know that the technology exists, the technology of who we actually are. So with this, everything I've gotten into so far, I am going to be taking this segment into a part 2 and continue getting into the 7th gate, and then proceed getting into the gates of the magicians of the elements, leading all the way up to Shaman. I encourage everybody out there, check out the website at blackearthproductions.com. Hail the services page and line things out for the initiation session. There's other services as well. Check out the links below in the description and send me an email at blackearthproductions with an S at the end at hotmail.com. All of this is increasing. All of this is growing, and more people are coming to know the truth of not only what's going on in the reality field, but who they are, what their alignment is in terms of the trajectory that's going to pull things into alignment in context to your actual destiny. And a lot of everything that's been revealed in this segment, see how it applies to you if you've already been initiated. And with what's coming with part 2, it's going to get even more powerful in terms of what's going to flip the script on all of this when it comes to planetary consciousness, elemental consciousness, the connection to your core, and the alignment that was set forth. This is Sethikus Boza, Black Earth Productions. Be empowered, bring this together.